Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to another tutorial. It's me IG and I'm back with a new tutorial. If today is your first time of stopping by my channel, you are on the right channel. My amazing returning subscribers, you guys are great. Thanks for your support. Guys, today I want us to DIY an Isiago Senator shirt. It's so easy to achieve. So that is what I want us to DIY, to show to you guys how you can achieve an Isiago Senator wear. So I want to show to you guys how you can DIY this Isiago material. It's the same method of cutting our Senator wear. I've made a lot of videos on how to cut a Senator wear. So that is exactly the same method. There is no difference. So I'm going to link it on the description box below for you guys to check it out. So now I've cut out my materials. This is my materials. I've cut them out. This is my materials for the Isiago that we are going to achieve. This is the back panel. This is the back panel. Do you see it? This is the back panel. I've cut it out. That's the back panel. And here is the front panel. This is the front panel. I've also opened the where the placket is going to be. So this is the front panel. And these are the facing. This is the back facing. And also I have the front facing also. And this is also the sleeve. Is going to be a short sleeve. Isiago is always a short sleeve. So now what I'm going to do, and this is the placket. This is the placket. I used the length of the placket we are going to use is 13 inches, while the wide of it is 1.5 inch. That is what the placket is going to be. So now the next thing to do is just to take it to use the facing to turn it. So this is the front panel. So I'm going to use the facing of the front panel. Remember, this facing I'm going to sew it from inside. So I'm going to place it in this form. Do you see it? I'm going to sew it. So when I sew it and I turn it over, when I sew it and I turn it over in this form, it's going to be on the front side. So that is what I'm going to do now, to use the facing to turn the front and the back neckline. After which we will now come to insert our placket. We insert our placket on the front panel, and also it's going to have an inside pocket. That is inner pocket. It's not going to have the pocket that is on top of the shirt. It's going to be an inner pocket. So we are going to also achieve that. So let me quickly use the facing to turn it and I'll be right. Now guys, I've gone along to use the facing to turn the front panel and the back panel. Do you see it? And I've also joined it together on the shoulder. Do you see it? I've joined it together on the shoulder. So that is it. So the next thing to do now is just to open it up and take our placket. This is our placket. So we'll now place it in this form. That is the way we are going to attach this placket. We are going to place it in this form. Do you see it? Then we'll use our pin. Make sure you place it on the center, on the right place. So you use your pin to pin it. Just use your pin to pin it so that it doesn't shake when you are sewing it. I believe we all know how to measure our placket. The length, the width of our placket is 1.5 inches. Then you determine the length. The length I'm using, like I showed to you guys, was 13 inches. The length, do you see it? 13 inches, as I said. And while cutting it, make sure it is straight. You can use your ruler, like I normally use my ruler, and I place it on my gum stay, the hard one, and I rule so that it's going to be straight. Then I cut it out. That is the way I do it, so that it's going to be straight. It's not going to bend. So you now pin it down with your pins. Do you see it? I will also pin on this down part. You are pinning it to make sure that it's not shaking while sewing it. Do you see it? So I'm now going to sew it. Guys, I've sewn in our placket. Do you see it? So that's the opening of the neck. I've sewed it in. That's our placket, the opening. Do you see it? So the next thing now is to insert our inner pockets. So now just place it on your table. Take your tape from the shoulder, measure 9 inches. From the shoulder, measure 9 inches. Here is my 9 inches. So from the shoulder, measure 9 inches. Here is my 9 inches. Do you see it? And I mark a line to it. And on the placket, I will divide the placket by 2. The placket is 1.5. I will divide it by 2. That is 3/4. Then I'll place my tape on the 3/4. That is at the middle, the 3/4. I place my tape and I'll measure 2 inches. So here is my 2 inches now. From the middle of the placket, I measure 2 inches. Here is my 2 inches. From these 2 inches, I'll measure 5 inches. That is the wide I want the pocket to be. Do you see it? I measure it, then I'll take my ruler just to rule it to be straight. Do you see it? So now what I have to do is to get my pieces, which I have already here. So the 2 pieces of cloth that I have, I measured them 6 inches by 5. That is, the width is 6 inches and the length is 5.5 inches. So I now place gum stay on it. Do you see it? Gum stay about 2.5 inches, about 2 inches. Do you see it? I use it to iron to it on the 2 piece of cloth that I have. Then I will now turn this side. Do you see it? I turn that place that were marked 5 inches at the back of it. Turn it, then also add a gum stay to it. Do you see it now, guys? Do you see it? You add a gum stay to it. This gum stay is to make the pocket to be strong. So now, I'll now take it back. I'll place it back. Then I'll take my 2 pieces. I'll now place one on the front in this form. And I'll now place the other one on top in this form. Do you see it? The way I'm going to place it. One on the lower side on the line, and the other one on the upper side, the same on the line. So I'm going to sew 1/4 inch. The pieces, I'm going to attach it, that is, sew it to the material by 1/4 inch. Do you see it? After which I will now open it up. Remember, the length is 5 inches and we have 6, so we have allowance. So I'm going to sew 1/4 inch, and after which I will now cut it open to turn it inside. So this is the piece that is going to be used. This is the piece that is going to be used to cover our pocket in this form. So now let me sew it and I'll be right back. Now guys, do you see I've sewn it? Do you see this is the upper one and this is the lower one? Remember, you are sewing it on the right side of the material. So now you are going to just fold it in this form to cut it open. Just give it a little bit notch, then you now put your scissors inside. Before you get to the 5 inch, on 1/2 inch you stop and you curve it. Take up the gum stay, then you curve it in this form, and on this side you also curve it. Make sure you don't go. So you cut it when you 1/2 inch before the 5 inches, you open it up to curve it. Do you see it? And you do the same on the other side. So you now take also this side, you now go 5 inch, 1/2 inch before the 5 inch, you also curve it, and you also curve on this side. Do you see it? So now you now turn it inside. So guys, see, I have turned it inside. That is after cutting it open. Remember, we cut it open. Then after that, you now push it inside. Do you see it? And also push the upper side. Do you see it at the back? How it's going to be? Do you see it? So the next thing to do now is to take it to the pressing table and press it down. Then on the down part of it, you push it up by 1/2 inch to cover the opening. So on the front side, it's going to be in this form. Do you see it? So on the front side, it's going to cover. Do you see it, guys? So I'll take it to the ironing table to push it, and also to iron it and push it by 1/2 inch to cover it up. And on these edges that we cut by the sides, we are going to sew it. That is, these little edges we are seeing here, we are going to sew it to the material in this form to hold it. And also on this side, we sew it. After which I will now use our piece. I will now use this piece to cover it up and take my measurement. I would like my measurement of the pocket to be 5 inches. Then I'll measure out 5 inches. I'll show it to you guys. But first, let me take it to the ironing table to iron it and close it up. Then we will do the rest. Guys, do you see it? Let me turn it. Do you see it? I have ironed it. Do you see it? And this is the back. This is the inside. That is the down part that I pushed up to use it to cover the opening. Do you see the opening? That's the opening. So I push it by 5 inch up and I iron it. So the next thing to do now is just to sew it. So I'm going to sew it. I'm going to take it to the machine. I'll just sew the upper side. Remember, you are not sewing, you are sewing the upper side separate. Just run a stitch to it to hold the piece on the upper side. And also on this edge, we now sew it to close it up. Then after which I'll now turn it. That's my piece. I'll use it. I'll place it in this form. I'll sew it to the lower side. The lower side, I'll sew it to it and measure how many inches I want the pocket to be. I want the pocket to be 5 inches. So I'll now measure 5 inches. Then I'll close it up and I'll show it to you guys. Now guys, I have fixed our pocket, our inner pocket. Do you see it? This is our inner pocket. And at the back, do you see how it is? I also use my zigzag stitch to run the edges. Do you see it? So this is our pocket. And when you open it inside, do you see it? So now our pocket has been attached. The next thing to do is to turn it on the wrong side to take our measurements, to close it up in order to achieve our sleeve. So now I'll use my pin to pin it. Now guys, I have pinned it. Do you see it? I have used my pin to pin. So the next thing to do now is to achieve our measurements. Just take your tape. Then on the chest we are working with is 46. The chest we are working with is 48. So 48 divided by 2 is going to give us 24 plus 1 inch on each side to close it. So it's going to give us 26 inches. I'm having 27, so I have enough. So what I'm going to do now is to, on each side, I'm going to take in 1.5 inch. So I place my tape on 1.5 inch and I come to this side. I take in 1.5 inch. Do you see it? So we have our 24 inches on both sides. Do you see it? So I'm closing it up by 1.5 inch. So I will now take it down to the waist. So on the waist, I have 26 inches. I'm going to also take 1.5 inch. So now join it. Then when you come to the hip. On the hip area, you also take the same measurement with the chest. That is 24 inches you are going to take on the hip area, because the hip and the chest is always the same measurement. So you take it, so you join it together. Do you see it? And on this side, so we have gotten our measurement. We have now gotten our measurement. So I'm going to close it up, after which I will now fix the sleeve. After sewing it, just take your measurements of the opening of your sleeve, of your armhole. You place it and you take your measurements from the shoulder. You take your measurements of your armhole. Do you see it? I have 14 inches, including the seam allowance. I have 14 inches, including the seam allowance. I have 14. Then I minus 1.5 inch. That is, I'll be left with 12.5. That is what I used to cut out my sleeve. So this is my sleeve. I measured 12.5 inch. Then I came down. The sleeve length is 10 inches. Then I came down by 5 inches. Then I curve it. You see it? I've made tutorial on how to cut a sleeve. You can check it out. I'll link it also on the description box below. So now let me fix them for us to insert our button. Now guys, I've joined our sleeve. This is our sleeve. Our Isiago senator is forming. Do you see it? So, and I've also folded the down part using 2 inches that we normally use for the down side. So now the next thing to do is just to attach our fanciful button, which is going to be here. Remember, we are going to attach the pressing button here to close it. This is just a fancy. I have my pressing button here. I'm going to use one. I'm going to use one to attach here to close it. Do you see it? So now let's insert the fanciful button. This is a new one, the reigning one now. So what we have to do is to take it out. So the next thing to do, just to attach it, we'll attach one here, the other one here, and the next one here. Do you see how we are going to attach it? So to attach it is just to open it up and insert it. But I'm going to use my plier. I have my plier with me. I'm going to use it. That is the plier to make the eyelets. So I'm going to use it to open up the holes. So here, I'm going to open here. So the first one is going to be here. The second one is going to be here. And the third one is going to be here. Do you see it? So I'm going to open it. And this one just has a pin, just to pin it here. Do you see it? So guys, this is the way to do it. Do you see it? Our Isiago is now forming. So let's open it up and see. Let's use this. So let's try. I want to make a hole. Let me see. The hole is not, this is bigger than it. So since this is bigger than it, you can equally use your scissors just to cut it a little bit open. Just a little bit. Do you see it? I've now cut it open. Do you see it, guys? So I'll now take it, the first one, I will insert it. You cut it open a little and you force it in so that it's not going to be wide to fall off. Guys, do you see it? Do you see it? So I'm going to do the rest too, then we will see the final look. Guys, our Isiago is ready. I've fixed our buttons and also the pressing button. I also used a black one to fix it so that it goes with the color. Do you see it? So now I'm going to put it on the mannequin for us to see the final look. The final look of our Isiago material that we have just DIY now. The senator wear, the Isiago senator wear for men. Do you see it? So beautiful fitted. Guys, do you see it? Do you see our chain? Do you see it? So guys, if this tutorial has been helpful to you, don't forget to smash the like button. Support me to grow this channel, and if you have not subscribed, consider subscribing. Subscription is free. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. For now, bye.